Alien mother's final breath. She gives her baby to a human. What happens next will change. Everything it was supposed to be just another day on Xandros. The sun hung low, casting a golden glow over the dusty plains, and the distant hum of alien hovercrafts was the only sound breaking the silence. James Oliver, a human mechanic, was used to this quiet, isolated existence. He had no need for grand adventures or fame. He only sought the satisfaction of a well-done job, fixing engines, repairing broken-down ships. His life revolved around the predictable rhythm of machines, things that didn't ask questions or complicate his days. But today was different. The ground beneath James's feet trembled as if the very bones of the planet were groaning in fear. The sky, once painted with the soft hues of sunset, darkened abruptly. A chill swept through the air as a high-pitched sound filled the space around him. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. He knew something was coming, something he couldn't control. Then the explosion. The shockwave slammed into him with the force of 1,000 storms, throwing him off balance. His heart raced as he stumbled to his feet, instinctively grabbing a wrench from his toolbox for protection, though he knew it was futile. No wrench would stop the firepower of an enemy fleet. His eyes darted to the horizon, where a dark plume of smoke rose from the neighboring settlement of Krell. Something big was burning there, something bad. His fingers tightened around the wrench as he ran outside, scanning the sky. That's when he saw them, warships, sleek and ominous, descending from the heavens like a pack of vultures. Their sharp contours and menacing speed made it clear who they were. Dravak warships. James's stomach churned. The Dravak were notorious for their merciless raids. Their ships were quick and deadly, tearing through systems like a wildfire, leaving nothing but ashes behind. The settlement of Krell was no stranger to raids, but this was different. There was a sense of finality in the air, as though this was no mere attack, but an annihilation. He wanted to run. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to flee, to hide in the safety of the desert where the Dravak wouldn't find him. But then, something caught his eye. A figure emerged from the smoke, stumbling toward him. At first it looked like a mirage, too hazy, too faint. But as the figure grew closer, James realized it was real. A humanoid woman, her blue skin almost glowing against the dimming light. Her movements were shaky, but determined. As she neared, he could see the deep wounds on her body, slashes on her arms, blood staining her armor, her breath shallow and quick. But it wasn't her injuries that grabbed his attention. It was the small bundle in her arms. The woman collapsed in front of him, her knees buckling under the weight of whatever she carried. Her eyes, wide with pain and desperation, met his. "Please," she gasped, barely able to speak. "You have to save my baby. The Dravak, they're coming. For her." James froze. His heart slammed against his chest. What did she mean? The Dravak were here for her child. He looked down at the bundle she cradled against her chest. It was wrapped in cloth, but even from a distance, he could tell the baby wasn't human. The color of the skin, deep blue like the woman's, was unmistakable. But what really hit him were the eyes. They were closed, but he could already sense the depth, the mystery within them. Eyes that seemed far too old for someone so young. "Her name is Liana," the woman murmured, her voice fading. "Promise me you'll protect her." James's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. He wasn't equipped for this. He was a mechanic, a fixer of machines, not a protector of children, especially not an alien one. He had no idea how to care for a baby, let alone one who might be hunted by an entire species. The woman's grip on his arm tightened, her strength shocking in its intensity. "Promise me," she insisted, her voice desperate. "She is the future. You must keep her safe." James's mind raced. What could he do? What was he supposed to do? He didn't have time to think, didn't have time to ask questions. His instincts, honed over years of working with engines, kicked in. Without thinking, the words slipped out. "I promise." A faint, relieved smile crossed her face before it faded. She lifted a pendant from around her neck, a small, strange metal disc inscribed with symbols he didn't recognize, and pressed it into his hand. "This," she whispered, "when the time comes, she'll need this." Then her hand fell away. The life in her eyes flickered for a moment before it dimmed entirely. She was gone. Just like that. James stood frozen, the tiny alien infant cradled in his arms, the weight of the woman's last request hanging heavily around him. His heart hammered in his chest as the reality of the situation settled in. The Dravak were coming, and now he was left with a baby, an alien baby, whose life was somehow tied to the fate of an entire galaxy. He looked down at Liana, her tiny fingers flexing in her sleep, as if already aware of the dangers that surrounded her. What had he gotten himself into? The world outside his workshop felt like it was collapsing. The Dravak would be here soon. They wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. And as James looked down at the fragile life in his arms, he realized he wasn't just holding a baby. He was holding the key to a war that had just begun, and he had no idea what he was supposed to do next. The ashes of Krell. The dust was settling over Krell. It was the kind of dust that clung to everything. The buildings, the people, the memories. Krell had never been a beautiful place, but it had been home to thousands. Now it was nothing more than a smoking ruin. James Oliver stood at the edge of the settlement, staring at the blackened remains of what had once been a thriving community. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the sky was painted in shades of red and orange, as if the very heavens were mourning the loss. His hand tightened around the baby he carried, her small blue form a stark contrast to the desolation around them. There had been no warning, no evacuation, no signal. Just an explosion that shook the ground beneath his feet and sent every living thing scrambling for cover. The Dravak ships had descended like vultures, their sleek, deadly forms cutting through the air with terrifying precision. They didn't come for trade or negotiation. They came to destroy. James had seen a lot in his time. He'd seen ships crash, engines explode, and cities burn, but nothing compared to what he was witnessing now. The destruction was too complete. The Dravak didn't just raid. They wiped everything off the map, leaving nothing behind but ashes and memories. He didn't know what to make of it. He didn't understand why they had targeted Krell, why they had come here to destroy a settlement so far from the core. But one thing was clear. They were hunting something. Something or someone. His thoughts were interrupted by a rustle behind him. He spun around, his heart leaping into his throat. Was it the Dravak again? No. It was a small group of survivors, refugees stumbling out of the wreckage. Their faces were stained with dirt and tears, their eyes hollow with the terror of the last few hours. They were the lucky ones, the ones who had managed to escape the initial wave. A young woman, covered in grime and blood, limped toward him, her eyes wide with panic. She was holding something tightly in her arms. Another baby. This one was human. James's throat went dry. The woman collapsed at his feet, the baby slipping from her arms. "Please," she begged, her voice hoarse and broken. "You have to protect her. They took everyone else. She's all I have left." James hesitated. He wasn't equipped for this. He wasn't a savior, wasn't a protector. He was just a mechanic. The woman's hand gripped his pant leg, desperation in her eyes. "You don't understand," she gasped. "They're not just hunting anyone. They're hunting our bloodline. And this baby, she's special. She's the last one." The words hung in the air, heavy and cryptic. The last one? What did that mean? What bloodline was she talking about? But before he could ask, the woman's eyes fluttered closed. Her body went limp. James stood frozen, staring down at the baby in his arms, his mind racing. He couldn't leave her here. He couldn't just walk away like this. The Dravak had come for a reason, and it wasn't just random destruction. There was something about these children, something important. He didn't know what he was supposed to do with a baby, let alone an alien one. But this wasn't about him. This was bigger than him. This was about survival, about protecting the future. James gently tucked the baby against his chest, moving quickly toward his workshop. He didn't know what kind of danger was coming next, but one thing was clear. He couldn't afford to be caught off guard. Not again. The air was thick with smoke as he passed the destroyed buildings of Krell, each one telling a story of a life lost. But amid the devastation, there was a glimmer of something else, a sign of life. A group of soldiers, human soldiers, had arrived, their armored suits gleaming even in the dimming light. They weren't just soldiers. They were part of the human special forces, the elite warriors sent to deal with the worst threats the galaxy could throw at them. The sight of them should have been a relief, but James didn't feel relieved. These men weren't here to save people. They were here for something else. They were here because the Dravak weren't just hunting any species. They were hunting humans. And now Liana was in danger. The soldiers didn't notice him at first. They were too busy checking the area for survivors and making sure the Dravak were truly gone. But then one of them spotted him, a tall man with a scar running down his cheek. He stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You," the soldier said, his voice low. "You're James Oliver, the mechanic from the outskirts, right?" James nodded slowly, trying to act casual, though his heart was pounding in his chest. How did they know who he was? He wasn't a soldier. He didn't belong here. The soldier's eyes narrowed. "You're carrying a child," he said, his voice sharper now. "Where did you get her?" James opened his mouth to respond but was cut off by the sudden blast of energy from the sky. A Dravak warship had just opened fire on the outer perimeter. The ground shook once more, and the soldiers scrambled to take cover. James felt the baby stir in his arms, the tiny alien fingers curling around his hand. Without thinking, he took off running, his feet pounding the dust as he sprinted back toward his workshop. Behind him, the soldiers followed, their heavy boots thudding against the cracked ground. The Dravak weren't done yet, but neither was James. The first mistake. The truth about the war did not begin with the destruction of Krell. It began much earlier, long before James Oliver ever touched the strange pendant, long before the Dravak descended on Xandros in fire and steel. It began with a mistake the Dravak believed was small, a mistake humans would never forget, a mistake that would start the most unexpected war in the galaxy. 3 months earlier, the Dravak flagship. Blood of Varkos. The bridge of the Dravak flagship buzzed with cold efficiency. Rows of officers with scaled armor bent over glowing screens. Their heavy breathing echoed in the metallic air. At the center of the chaos stood General Drask Volkar, a towering figure whose 4 red eyes burned with ruthless ambition. He watched a hologram flicker to life before him, a tiny human colony orbiting an unimportant star. Peaceful, quiet, completely unguarded. "Weak, General," a Dravak officer rasped. "Should we proceed with the harvest?" Volkar let out a low, satisfied growl. "Yes, humans are soft. They won't resist." It was the first mistake Volkar believed humans were prey, slow, emotional, and fragile. He believed humans cried when threatened, begged when cornered, and broke easily under fear. He was wrong. So very wrong. The raid. The Dravak ships arrived at dawn, blotting out the sun. Their engines screamed as they descended on the tiny human colony of Darwin. 6 buildings crumbled under their blasts. Families fled. Chaos ripped through the streets. But something unexpected happened. The humans didn't break. A small group fought back. Farmers, miners, engineers, using whatever tools they could grab. Hammers, mining lasers, rifles built for hunting local wildlife. They were outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered 50 to 1. But they fought anyway. One Dravak soldier shouted in panic, "General, they're not running!" General Volkar laughed. "Let them fight. This is entertainment." More Dravak descended, overwhelming the colony. By midday, dozens of humans were taken prisoner. The Dravak believed the operation was complete. The second mistake, because humans do not forget, and humans do not let their people remain in chains. What the Dravak didn't know among the captured humans was Dr. Leon Cortez, a scientist and geneticist with a secret government clearance. She was brilliant, resourceful, and dangerously stubborn. She was also Liana's grandmother. The Dravak locked her and the other prisoners inside a metallic containment chamber aboard their ship. They expected fear. They expected collapse. Instead, the humans began planning. "Can we break out?" a young miner whispered. Dr. Cortez nodded slowly. "We can, but we need something better than brute strength." There, inside a metal prison, surrounded by alien enemies, humans did the most human thing possible. They adapted. The Dravak had no idea that humans could learn to bypass their security tech after seeing it only once. No idea that humans could reverse engineer alien devices in hours. No idea that humans could form a plan with nothing but scraps of metal and raw determination. Dr. Cortez created a crude hacking tool from a Dravak ration heater. A farmer built a jammer from power coils. A teenager rewired a weapon with nothing but broken wires and grit. By nightfall, the humans had taken control of half the ship's lower deck, and by morning, the entire Dravak crew lay unconscious, trapped in corrugated holding cells they had once used to cage humans. And then came the quiet ones. The humans who escaped sent out a distress beacon, not to their colony, not to their government, but to the human special forces, the elite unit known across the galaxy as the Quiet Ones. They arrive without warning. They leave without footsteps. They end battles before enemies realize a war has begun. General Volkar never expected them. He should have. Their ship slipped out of hyperspace like a shadow. No sound, no warnings, no mercy. Captain Elijah Ward stepped onto the Dravak flagship with 12 soldiers behind him. Volkar roared, "This is Dravak territory. You trespass on our warship." Ward said 8 simple words. "You kidnapped our people. Now we take everything." The third mistake, the biggest one. The Dravak fought with brutality. Humans fought with precision. Every human shot hit a vital point. Every move had a purpose. Every Quiet One soldier fought as if they had trained for this moment their entire lives because they had. By the time the sun rose over Darwin 6 again, the Dravak fleet was gone. Not drifted away, not retreated. Gone, erased, destroyed. The galaxy whispered about the incident in fear. An entire Dravak fleet was wiped out by 12 humans? The Dravak attacked the wrong species. Humans are not prey. And Volkar, humiliated and furious, made his final fatal decision. He would hunt every remaining human connected to Dr. Cortez's bloodline. He believed killing them would erase the threat forever. He did not know that this bloodline would lead him to Liana. He did not know that this decision would ignite a war so brutal, so unexpected, that the galaxy itself would tremble. He did not know that this small hunted infant, the child James now held in his arms, would become the spark that turned humans into legends. The human shadow team Krell was still burning when the shadows arrived. Not smoke, not Dravak soldiers, not Commonwealth patrols. Shadows. Human shadows. They stepped out of the dusk without sound, without warning, without hesitation. 12 figures moving like ghosts across the ruined streets. Their armor was matte black with no insignias, no colors, no lights. Their movements were so smooth, so precise, it was hard to tell if they were soldiers or something else entirely. But one thing was certain. These were not ordinary humans. These were the Quiet Ones, the most feared special operations unit in the galaxy. A name spoken only in whispers, a force so silent and efficient that most species believed they were a myth. But tonight, the myth walked on Xandros, and they were looking for one man. James Oliver. Inside his workshop, James tried to calm the baby in his arms. Liana's tiny fingers curled around his thumb, her silver eyes flickering with an awareness far too old for her age. "You've got to stay quiet," he whispered. The baby didn't understand him, but she felt his fear. She pressed her head against his chest. Seeking warmth, James's heart pounded. He wasn't trained for this. He wasn't ready to defend a child from an alien army. But he had made a promise, and a promise to him was a heavier weight than any starship ever built. He heard footsteps outside, soft, measured, skilled, not Dravak, not Commonwealth troops, something else. James grabbed a pulse wrench from his shelf. Not a weapon, but better than nothing. He held Liana close and moved toward the back exit. Too late. The workshop door slid open, and the shadows stepped inside. The meeting, the first figure removed his helmet. A man with sharp features, gray eyes, and a calm face that looked like it had witnessed 100 wars. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't shout. He simply said, "James Oliver." James froze. "Who are you?" The soldier stepped forward. "Captain Elijah Ward, Human Special Forces." A pause. "But you probably know us by another name." James whispered, The quiet ones. Ward gave a slight nod. We're here for the child. James stepped back instinctively, clutching Leanna protectively. She's not your mission. Stay away from her. Ward didn't reach for his weapon. He didn't need to. James, he said quietly, we don't harm our own. And that child, whether she knows it or not, is connected to humanity. James felt the world tilt. Connected how? Ward nodded at the pendant around James's neck. That symbol, he said, belongs to the Luminari, and your bloodline is the key to their technology. That baby, Leanna, carries both. James swallowed hard. How do you know? Ward sighed. Because Dr. Leon Cortez, Leanna's grandmother, worked with us. His words were simple, but the meaning behind them was enormous. So the Dravak are after her because of that? James asked. Ward shook his head. They're after her because they fear what she will become. The shadows behind Ward shifted, always alert, always scanning. James, Ward said softly, I need you to trust me. We're here to protect you. And her. But why me? James demanded. I'm just a mechanic. Ward studied him carefully. No, he said. You're more. The reveal Ward motioned to one of his soldiers, who stepped forward holding a small holopad. A bright blue display flickered to life, projecting a file with James's name at the top. James Oliver, Ward read, age 35, former Alliance Marine engineer, combat mechanic, Medal of Perseverance, discharged after the Battle of Hillian Ridge. James felt his chest tighten. That was a long time ago. Not long to us, Ward said. You saved 77 lives with nothing but scrap metal and a plasma torch? We never forget humans like you. James looked away. He had buried that part of his past long ago, Ward continued. We traced Dravak attacks across 6 systems. Every attack targeted Luminari bloodlines. Every attack ended the same way. Total eradication. He stepped closer. Except here, except you. Leanna stirred in James's arms, her silver eyes opening slowly. Ward looked at her with a mixture of awe and caution. That child is the last living bridge between humans and Luminari, he said, and the Dravak will stop at nothing to take her. James clenched his jaw. I won't let anyone take her. Ward's eyes softened. We know. That's why we're here. But I heard soldiers were searching the ruins, James said. Were those not your men? Ward's expression darkened. No, those were Commonwealth forces. James felt his breath catch. The Commonwealth? They're looking for her too? Ward nodded. To them, she's not a child. She's a weapon. The decision. The quiet ones waited silently as James processed everything. Leanna cooed softly, her tiny hand reaching up toward Ward. As if sensing a familiar energy, Ward lowered his voice. James, you have a choice. His words hung heavy in the air. You can come with us. We'll get you and the child off-world. We'll keep her safe, no matter the cost. James's grip tightened around Leanna. He looked around his workshop, the tools, the engines, the life he had built. And then he looked at the baby, the child who shouldn't even be alive. His choice was already made. He nodded. I'm coming. Ward's face shifted into a rare, faint smile. Good, because the Dravak aren't the only ones closing in. The alarm. A sudden alarm pierced the night. One of the shadows turned sharply. Captain, movement on the North Ridge. Dravak scouts closing fast. Another voice. Heat signatures behind us. Commonwealth dropships incoming. Ward's eyes narrowed. We're out of time. He reached for his helmet. James, hold that child tight. He slid the helmet over his head, his voice turning steel. The war just found us. One human versus a fleet. The night exploded. Zandros had always been a quiet world, a place for forgotten people, old machines, and dusty sunsets. But now 2 of the galaxy's greatest predators were descending on the same patch of desert at the same time from the west. Dravak warships, engines glowing like molten fire. From the east, Commonwealth dropships, cold and metallic, flying in tight formation. In the center, James Oliver, the quiet ones, and a baby who could change the galaxy. Ward's voice crackled through his helmet. Team, Form perimeter. Protect James and the child at all costs. The quiet ones moved instantly, no hesitation, no confusion, each soldier sliding into position with mechanical precision. What made them terrifying wasn't their weapons, but the way they moved with one mind. James clutched Lyanna against his chest as the air shook with incoming fire. "This is insane," he muttered. Ward stepped beside him. "No, this is war, and it's only the beginning." The Dravak strike first. A Dravak gunship swooped low, its engines screaming like a dying beast. Bright red plasma ripped across the desert, carving molten lines in the sand. Ward pointed. "Harper, on me." Two Quiet One soldiers sprinted forward, silent, deadly. They moved in zigzag patterns impossible to track. A blast struck exactly where they had been a split second earlier. Harper slid under the shadow of the Dravak ship, attached something to its underside, and rolled away. 1, 2, 3. Boom! The gunship went up in a burst of blue flame, crashing into the dunes. James stared. "Your team just took out a gunship on foot." Ward shrugged. "We're human. We improvise." Then came the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth dropships landed hard, sending clouds of dust into the air. Their soldiers poured out, white armor gleaming, visors glowing. One pointed at James. "There! The human mechanic! He has the child! Retrieve her!" James cursed under his breath. "What do I look like, a childcare thief?" Ward stepped forward. "You're not getting past us." The Commonwealth commander scoffed. "You and 12 soldiers against a battalion?" Ward tilted his head. 12 Quiet Ones." The Commonwealth commander went silent. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name. He regrouped. "Capture them if possible. Eliminate if necessary." The Quiet Ones opened fire with perfect precision, not wild shots, not wasted energy. Every bullet hit a knee joint, a weapon, a visor, non-lethal but disabling. The Commonwealth soldiers fell like dominoes. James blinked. "You're just disabling them?" Ward nodded. "They're not the enemy. They're just in the way." James joins the fight. A Dravak warrior crashed into the workshop behind James, its 4 claws slashing the air. Ward yelled, "James, duck!" James didn't duck. He swung a plasma wrench straight into the creature's jaw. Crack. The Dravak collapsed with a hiss. Ward paused. "You kept the wrench?" James lifted it proudly. "Don't judge me." Lyanna cooed in his arm as if approving. Ward chuckled. "You're more useful than half the trained soldiers we've met." The sky turns red. A huge shadow fell over them. A Dravak command dreadnought broke through the clouds, massive, armored, glowing with power. It was the size of a city block. Lightning crackled along its hull. Harper whispered, "Captain, that's not a scout ship." Ward nodded grimly. "No, that's Volkar's personal flagship." The Dravak general himself had arrived. James felt cold fear crawl up his spine. Lyanna whimpered, sensing danger. Ward placed a hand on his shoulder. "James, you need to listen carefully." James swallowed. "I'm listening." "This is not a battle we can win." James blinked. "Then what are we still doing here?" Ward pointed to the east. A familiar sleek black ship soared over the ridge. Quiet, fast, deadly. Ward smirked under his helmet. "Our ride. The escape begins." The Quiet Ones formed a tight circle around James and Lyanna. Running in sync, plasma fire rained down from the sky, turning the desert into a storm of explosions. Dravak warriors charged from the west. Commonwealth units closed in from the east. The dreadnought above charged its main cannon. Everything was collapsing. Ward shouted, "Move! Last chance!" The ship landed with a hiss, its ramp lowering. James sprinted inside with Lyanna. Ward turned back to the battlefield. "Team, defensive wall." The Quiet Ones lined up in a formation so precise it looked unreal. Their rifles glowed blue. Their stance was steady. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but their resolve was clear. Ward raised his fist and shouted, "This is human territory." And then, the world went white. A wall of blue energy burst outward from the Quiet One's rifles, knocking back both Dravak and Commonwealth forces. It wasn't a weapon. It was a message: humans do not run. Humans do not bow. Humans do not lose. Not when their own are threatened. The escape. As the ship lifted, James looked through the window below. The quiet ones fought like legends. 12 humans holding off 2 armies. Ward leapt aboard at the last second. The ramp closing behind him, James breathed hard. "Did we make it?" Ward nodded. "For now." Leanna grabbed Ward's finger. Her small silver eyes stared up at him with strange intelligence. Ward whispered, almost to himself, "She knows we're fighting for her." James held her tighter. "And we won't stop." Ward looked at him. "No, because the Dravak just made the worst mistake in the galaxy." James raised an eyebrow. "And what mistake is that?" Ward's voice was calm but filled with steel. "They messed with humans." The last human warning. The ship tore through Xandros' atmosphere like a burning arrow, shaking violently as it broke free of the chaos. Below, James held Lyanna tight, bracing himself as alarms flashed across the cabin. Ward hurried to the cockpit, barking orders. "Rafe, get us into low orbit." "Copy that," the pilot shouted. "But Captain, Dravak fighters inbound, 3 o'clock. James moved beside Nerea, who was strapping in with calm hands. He noticed her eyes glowing faintly. Reacting to the baby's rising fear, James whispered, "She okay?" Narya nodded. "She feel everything." James pressed Lyanna closer to his chest. "It's okay, I've got you." But outside, the universe wasn't okay. The Dravak dreadnought rose through the sky like a giant metal monster, spines glowing with red lightning. Its main cannon charged again, aimed directly at their fleeing ship. The pilot shouted, "Captain, if that cannon fires, we're vaporized." Ward didn't look afraid. Ward rarely looked anything. "Not today," he said quietly. "James, get to the rear turret. We need backup." James stared. "I'm a mechanic. Ward, I fix engines." "I'm not." Ward turned sharply. "You're human. That's enough." The Dravak strike again. James sprinted through the corridor, heart pounding. Lights flickered. The ship rumbled like a dying beast. When he reached the turret pod, he slid into the chair and grabbed the controls. The display lit up incoming. Dravak hunter ships. 6. James whispered, "You've got to be kidding me." The hunters swooped toward them, sleek and deadly. He fired. The recoil nearly ripped his arms off. 2 ships exploded in flashes of blue flame. He blinked. "That actually worked?" The pilot's voice crackled over the comms. "Nice shot, Oliver. Do it again." But the Dravak adapted fast. 2 hunters flanked them, firing razor-thin beams that sliced across their hull, causing sparks to erupt inside. James gritted his teeth. "Not today." He fired again and clipped the wing of one hunter, sending it spiraling into the other. Both went down in a fiery crash. James pumped a fist. "Humans, baby!" The dreadnought's final shot. But then, a deadly hum filled the air. The dreadnought's main cannon was primed. A red beam built at its center, hotter than a star, brighter than lightning. Ward stood in the middle of the ship, staring through the viewport. Rafe said in a terrified whisper, "Captain, if that cannon fires, we're space dust." Nerea tightened her hold on Lyanna. James ran back into the cabin, breathless, sweating. Ward raised one hand. "Not if we use the device?" Narya's eyes widened. "That is too risky. James is not ready." James froze. "What device?" Ward opened a secure case built into the floor. Inside was a small crystalline sphere, glowing blue with shifting light. James frowned. "What is that?" Nerea took a breath. "It's a key catalyst," Ward explained. "Luminary tech, ancient, unstable. It boosts human luminary resonance. With you and Lyanna both, it may activate." James blinked. "May?" Ward nodded once. "Or it may vaporize us instantly." James stared at him. "And those are the only 2 options?" Ward shrugged. "Welcome to human history." The choice. The ship shuddered violently. The dreadnought cannon glowed brighter, seconds from firing. Nerea stepped closer to James, placing Lyanna in his arms. "You must decide," she whispered. "Do we fight with ancient power, or run and hope the universe has mercy? James looked at the tiny blue infant resting against his chest. Her silver eyes blinked softly. She was innocent. She was fragile. She was the only thing in this galaxy he absolutely refused to lose. James took a deep breath. Ward! Ward turned. Yeah? Give me the damn device. Ward slapped the catalyst into James's palm. It felt warm, alive. Noria held his free hand. Focus. Not on fear, on purpose. On her. James stared at Liana. Her tiny hand reached up, touching the glowing sphere. The resonance awakens. A shock wave tore through the ship. Blue light burst from James's hands. Pure, burning electric energy. The catalyst spun faster. Liana's eyes lit up like two silver stars. Narya gasped, She's guiding it! Ward held the railing as the ship trembled. James, don't let go! The catalyst exploded with light. A beam shot forward, through the hull, through space, directly toward the Dravak dreadnought. One human changed everything. The beam wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an explosion. It was a command, a pulse, a message sent across the battlefield. The dreadnought's cannon flickered, then shut down completely. The entire Dravak fleet froze, engines dropping to idle, weapons powering off. The Commonwealth ships chasing them suddenly stalled too. Every vessel in orbit went silent. Ward whispered in awe. She activated a peace field, the ancient luminary safeguard. Rafe blinked. The entire sky just went offline. James stared at Liana, breathless. What did she just do? Naraya answered softly. She stopped a war. But it came with a cost. James dropped to one knee as exhaustion hit him. Naraya caught Liana. Ward helped James stay upright. The catalyst dimmed. The energy faded. James gasped. I can't feel my arms. Naraya touched his face. You used luminary power for the first time. It will drain you, but you're alive. Ward looked at him with something rare. Respect. You single-handedly shut down 2 fleets, Ward said. That's a new record, Oliver. James managed a weak smile. Well, humans like records. Outside the window, the Dravak dreadnought drifted powerless, its cannon dark, but Ward's voice grew hard again. This peace won't last, he warned. They'll be back. James nodded. I know. He stood slowly. But next time, I won't be just a mechanic. He looked at Liana, the child who united 2 bloodlines, stopped 2 armies, and awakened something inside him he never knew existed. She's counting on me, James whispered, and I won't let her down. Ward nodded. Then get ready, James Oliver, because the galaxy has just noticed you. Humans don't bow. They rise. The ship drifted through the quiet orbit of Xandros, engines low, alarms silent. But this wasn't peace. This was the silence before the next storm. James stood at the main viewport, staring at the Dravak dreadnought, floating powerless in space. Its red eyes dim, its weapons cold, its engines dead. Liana had done it. A baby, half human, half luminary, full miracle. But James didn't feel like celebrating. Not yet, because something felt wrong. Ward stepped beside him, visor under his arm. You're thinking too loud, the captain said. James didn't look away from the window. They're going to adapt, Ward. The Dravak, the Commonwealth, they're not going to accept being neutralized. They'll study it, counter it. Ward nodded slowly. That's why we're not running, James turned. Excuse me? Ward folded his arms. We're going back, to the temple. James blinked. Back? That place is a war magnet. Exactly, Ward said. And right now it's the only safe place in the entire sector. The temple is ancient, shielded, hidden. The peace field came from there. If Liana activated it once, maybe she can activate something bigger. Narya joined them, Liana cradled in her arms, silver eyes wide, watching everything. She's too young to control that power, Narya warned. But the temple might guide her, and James is the bridge. He balances her. James raised an eyebrow. So now I'm a power stabilizer? Narya smiled softly. You're more than that. You're necessary. He swallowed hard. That word hit deeper than he expected. Arrival at the Temple of Ascension. The ship descended through swirling crimson clouds. Lightning danced around ancient spires. The ground cracked like dried bone beneath them. The Temple of Ascension stood in silence, massive, untouched by time, glowing faintly with blue runes. James felt a strange pull in his chest, a connection, like the temple recognized him. Ward noticed. Feels weird, doesn't it? James nodded slowly. It feels like home, Narya smiled. Because part of you has always been connected to this place. They stepped into the main chamber, where the galactic holomap still hovered. The air hummed with quiet power. The room seemed to watch them. Then, Liana lifted her tiny hand. The entire temple lit up. Runes blazed, blue walls shifted. A deep rumble echoed through the floor. Ward grabbed his rifle. What's happening? Narya whispered. She is awakening the archive. The archive reveals the truth. A massive crystal dais rose from the floor. Light spiraled upward, forming images. History captured in glowing threads. James saw humans and Luminary working together. Sharing technology, sharing knowledge. Living side by side. Then, he saw the war. He saw betrayal, fear, greed. And he saw something he didn't expect. A human woman with silver eyes. Liana's grandmother, standing beside a Luminary elder Ward, exhaled slowly. So that's the bridge. Your ancestors built this place. Narya touched the projection. And Liana is the next bridge. James felt the answer settle into him. Then our job is to protect that bridge. Suddenly, the temple shook violently. Red lights flashed across the chamber. Ward spun. Positions! We've got incoming! James pulled out his plasma wrench. Let me guess. Drawback? No, Ward said, checking the scanners. His voice dropped. Worse. The third faction above the temple, a massive ship uncloaked, sleek, black, shaped like a blade. It wasn't Drawback. It wasn't Commonwealth. No colors, no symbols. Just death. Ward cursed under his breath. Black Spire Syndicate. Naria's face drained of color. They want the child more than anyone. They steal bloodlines, sell species. They won't negotiate. James tightened his grip on the wrench. Let them come, Ward smirked. Careful what you wish for. The temple doors blasted open, and dozens of soldiers in obsidian armor stormed inside. Their leader stepped forward, a tall figure with a mechanical jaw and red cybernetic eyes. His voice was a metallic growl. Hand over the hybrid and the archive, or we burn this world. James stepped in front of Narya and Liana. Over my dead body. The leader tilted his head. That can be arranged. One last human, Stan Ward and the quiet ones, moved like shadows. Fast, brutal, surgical. The battle turned the sacred temple into a storm of energy blasts, shattered stone, and echoing screams. Narya shielded Liana with a glowing dome of energy. James stood in front of them, swinging his wrench like a weapon forged by destiny. A syndicate soldier charged. James knocked him out with a single swing. Another rushed him. James ducked under the blade, grabbed a fallen rifle, and fired point blank. Ward shouted, James, behind you! James spun and blocked an energy blade with the wrench, sparks flying. His arms burned, his lungs ached. But he didn't fall, because humans don't fall when someone innocent is behind them. They rise, always. Liana awakens. Suddenly, Liana cried, a high, soft sound. The entire battlefield froze. Then, a wave of silver light exploded from the child, washing over the soldiers, the walls, the sky, the planet. The syndicate soldiers collapsed. Their cybernetics shorted out. Their weapons powered off. The entire Black Spire ship fell from the sky like a dead bird, Ward whispered. She ended an entire invasion with a cry. Narya held Liana close, tears in her eyes. She's awakening fully. She's choosing peace. James fell to one knee, exhausted. But Liana reached out and touched his cheek, and warmth flooded through him. Strength, calm, hope. Ward knelt beside him. James Oliver, humanity should be proud. James stood slowly. No, he said quietly. She didn't do this because she's Luminari. She didn't do this because she's alien. He looked at the child in Narya's arms. She did it because she's part human. The new era begins. As dawn rose over the crimson wastes, the temple hummed with new life. The peace field stabilized. The archives unlocked. 3 species, human, luminary, even Dravak, sent envoys to negotiate under the temple's protection. Ward announced, "The war is over because one human made a promise and kept it." Nerea stepped beside James. Liana will grow, learn, become something greater than both our peoples. James rested a hand on the baby's small back, and she won't do it alone. Nerea's smile was soft. Are you ready, James? He looked out at the horizon, at the rising sun, at the future he never expected. Yeah, he said, I'm ready for anything. Liana's silver eyes opened wide. She giggled, and the temple lights pulsed brighter, answering her a new era had begun. The end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.